This road on the show. This is Talkaoke. If you don't know what it is, it couldn't be more simple. It is a pop-up talk show. All that really is involved is talking to this mic, hopefully a bit of listening as well, but it's not essential. My name's Mikey. Let's find out who we've got around the table. People, everyone's welcome to come and have a seat at the table or chat. You don't have to say anything, and you especially don't have to say anything like super clever. Just say stuff. That's pretty much it. So I'm going to find out who we've got around the table. Looks like we've got a bit of a crowd coming around. Yes, you're all welcome, and that includes the people on the cheap seats over there. As I said, my name's Mikey. We're going to start off here, and this also is going to function as a little bit of a mic test. So tell us your name.
I'm Timna.
Timna, welcome.
Philippa.
Philippa.
Eugene.
Say again.
Eugene.
Eugene.
Yeah. I'm Comidora. Yeah.
Comidora, okay.
Margot.
Swiss.
Teddy.
Anne.
Okay, so we've got the names in. People do come and join us if you want to, but the whole kind of flow of Talkaoke, you can come and go as you please, so join whenever you want to. And the other thing about Talkaoke is it's kind of up to you what you want to talk about, and don't feel too committed, because I'm sure, especially at the beginning, we're just going to sort of float around a little bit and see where we go. Has anyone got anything they want to kick off with? Any thoughts, comments, observations, suggestions, ideas, interjections? Margot?
I mean, I know that today is a little bit about care, just that kind of subject of care. And I often think about what's going to happen when I'm really old and decrepit, like who's going to care for me because I have no children. Okay. So that's definitely something that I'm thinking about a lot.
All right, so that's a good one to really kick off with. What's going to happen when you're old? I'm probably the oldest person here at the table, so it's going to happen to me first. Also, I've got no kids either. So what's going to happen to us when we're old? What's going to happen to Margot when she's old? I'm going to do the classic. Oh, we've got another new face. Tell us your name.
Kelly.
Kelly, welcome. We have got Margot, we've got Swiss, we've got Teddy, we've got Anne, we've got Timna, we've got Philippa, Eugene, and Laura, and and back to Kelly. Mine's Mikey. We're talking about what's going to happen when we get old. Is going to be anyone to look after? What are you actually looking for, though, in terms of being looked after?
I mean, I don't know. This is the big unknown, isn't it? Like when we are young and we've got relatively good health, I think we don't think about it as like, oh, it'll be okay, it doesn't matter. But actually, when you have children, it's actually a really good model for building in care into your kind of family unit, like free care. So if I end up in a wheelchair or whatever, it's like, it's okay. On the emotional kind of basis, my child ought to look after me. Bang.
Okay.
That's what I think about.
I forgot to do a round of applause. That's for everybody. Kelly, you wanted to jump in there?
I don't think children should be expected to care for their parents. I actually think we should rethink what a family unit is. I'm saying I don't have kids, but I think actually maybe we need to rethink how family operates, and that it isn't necessarily a kind of progeny and a lineage of, it's not biology, it might be friendship groups, it might be, and much more intergenerationalness. Okay, so you need friends. Do come and join if you want to. Are you worried about what's going to happen to you when you get old? Is that a yes or a no? Maybe. What about on this side? What do people think? Is it wrong to imply that our kids should be looking after us? Do we need a different model for people? We've got a new face over here. Tell us your name. What's your name?
Liu. Liu. Liu.
What's it?
Liu.
Lou. Yeah. Okay, so Lou, welcome. Are you worried about what's going to happen to you when you get older?
No, not really.
Not really, okay. Is anyone apart from Margot concerned? We've got a new face over here. Just tell us your name.
Joey, we have met.
Yes, but in Talkaoke we always like to introduce everybody. Are you worried about... let me give you a round of applause as well. There you go. Are you worried about what's going to happen to you when you get older?
Yes, I do. So I'm definitely thinking about, because we grew older, our sense of, let's say, our mobility, our energy level will be not as good as young. So definitely wanted to keep my spirit intact when I grow older.
Okay, so there's energy and there's spirits. Do people... Yeah, Teddy?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I worry that I'll even get that old to be caring for. But I've got siblings, so they can pick up the baton. But I do worry about my grandmother, and like who's going to. She's still at home and she has dementia, and there's always that conversation about money. Like it's going to cost us money. In other words, it's going to cost you your inheritance. So there seems to be that dilemma at the moment happening at home.
Okay, so you're worried about the money.
I'm not.
Yeah, you're not worried about the money.
I'm not worried about my inheritance.
Yeah, okay, but the money is going to drain out in going into the care system. Does even your granny want that to happen? Would she rather the money kind of went to the grandchildren? Philippa, you look like you're going to say something. Yeah.
Yes. I guess the word care and that also being placed on what we are contributing, and so with intergenerational, I think, community living, what that also feeds into, I guess, value and appreciation, and what we're being fed down, as well as what we can feed up as younger, more maybe, able to provide that care, but what we then in turn can absorb and gain from those who are in those older years. And I think so much of the struggle, or maybe the challenge, and this is a question, I don't know, but what I hear is that feeling of, am I valued or relevant in this world? And I think when we're all living together, you see so much of what is, and so I don't
Am
know.
I valued or relevant in this world? Are you feeling valued and relevant?
I think that sense of value and relevance, I think, in my view, I think it comes from our family members, I would say, kind of linking back to what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, sure, we can have our kind of like friendship groups, and we don't necessarily have to have children or create a nuclear family. But I think in this society, family is just like, it's a no-brainer. If you've got family, you're good. Basically, you've done well. You've done the good thing. And if you don't, I think it's still kind of treated with a bit of suspicion. And I think for young people, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm, which I think is just absolutely great that it's kind of like happening. People are excited about doing, I don't know, intergenerational things. But we do need validation of older people. I'm going to say, broadly speaking, we need their validation. I kind of agree.
Okay, so we need the validation of
our grandparents,
parents, and family members. You look like you're going to say something, Timna.
Yeah, I kind of like this idea, which already exists. Like you could have a shared flat with people from older generations and from younger generations. And I think, my grandparents unfortunately died a couple of years ago. So I couldn't and they live far away, so I couldn't really get their wisdom. But people, no matter where they come from, the age gives them so much life experience, and I think it's kind of cool to get this life experience.
So you think maybe more flat shares with older people, younger people all living together in a flat share, maybe that could be one way of doing it. Talking about value and relevance, people, there's some spare seats on the table, so come forward and take part in this. I'm not saying that's making me feel more valued and relevant, but in a way it is. So, what do people think about this idea? Can we live intergenerationally? There's a point about kind of the spirit and energy. Will that match between older people and younger people? Why is it such a weird thing, and we're not doing that right now?
I feel as if we've forgotten how to do it.
Yeah.
I think we have, I think we don't do it because of capitalism, because capitalism is all about atomising individuals, and even just in terms of the kind of housing that is being built now, it is all like 1-bedroom flats or 2-bedroom flats. It is not housing that is made for groups of people intending to live together for the rest of their lives, for example. There might be like flat shares, which are, people are living in really cramped spaces, but we need architecture that is made in such a way that it allows for intergenerational living to take place, and streets and towns and, all those sorts of things.
Okay, so it could be about the architecture. Is the architecture conducive, Philippa?
So what do we ask for? Like, I know that this really comes from a place of, well, this is what I believe and this is what my heart like feels and knows, but I guess big stuff always seems to link to, I don't know, government or like voting power. So what do we ask for? Like,
Okay, that's
what
a really good question.
You
I
know, when
think.
it comes to climate change, we can like actually kind of pinpoint, okay, the damage comes from this place, so therefore what do we do? But with wanting to live better in this way where humans are feeling and living better, I'm not quite sure what to ask for.
Yeah, and you think like this, the capitalism comment from Kelly was a bit too big and indigestible.
No, right there.
You're right there, okay.
Right there, but then what do...
Yeah,
I can't ask for, excuse me,
Yeah.
can we end capitalism? Because I don't think they're going to sign
Okay,
up for that.
I'm just going to bring Tim in the room, but people in the cheap seats, come forward. We want your opinions here. Are you worried about what's going to happen to you when you get older? Is it capitalism, therefore hard to kind of deal with? What do we ask for, says Philippa. That's where we are right now. In terms of actually progressing this thing, we've got a new face at the table. Definitely a round of applause for you. Tell us your name.
Holly.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Do you want to just hang on in there? Have you got a point to make straight off the bat?
I was having this conversation with my housemate earlier, and like we just don't know like where our pension is, or if we have one, or if we're ever going to get to an age where we can retire. So yes, we are worried.
Okay, so you're worried about like what is it? Not having any cash when you're.
Well, it's just because I know, having worked with the care home, like I know how expensive it is to be cared for, and I'm not going to have kids, so I'm screwed.
Okay. All right. So there's a strong point there. So is it about the money? Just that we got?
I think for myself, it's more about back to the relevance point. I think as having a career and the idea of being in the same career for 30, 40 years kind of scares me. So I suppose, is the career going to be relevant? Or also I feel like we're prone to get bored more easily these days, so I think that's a massive fear for me.
Okay, so there's a couple of things there. There's the boredom, and maybe we could. I would like to visit the question of boredom, but also this thing before you even get to old. There's this idea of being stuck in a career for decades. There's a point here,
Yeah, because you're talking about a career, so it seems that fewer young people choose to stay in a career for a longer time. So we're constantly thinking about shifting career path. And then when it comes to the question about ageism, it's a huge thing in workplace. So if you're not sticking to one career path in terms of the career progression, when you get older, you're wanting to change to a different career path, it becomes quite difficult. So ageism is a thing.
Okay, so as you get older, careers get more. I mean, I feel we need to hear from some older people here. Have you struggled to change your career, or what's it like? Because there's a lot. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being old. I can't really say that much myself in the middle. But is it that hard to change a career when you're older?
I mean, it's not to answer this question, but I'm just interested in when people. You said you were working with people in care homes. Like, what is their view on this? Because maybe we're just like overthinking it. Because the idea, what do they think? My grandma's like she's dead now, but she was pretty chill. We were like fretting, like, oh, what about the pension? This, then the other. For her, it's like, whatever. She's not even thinking about it. Okay. She's already there. Like, there's nothing she can do. So she's just like riding the wave.
Okay, so maybe older people are going to be riding the wave. I'll come to you in a second, but I probably need to pick up from this, and Holly, because you've been into the care home. What's the vibe in there? Grab the mic.
Oh, thank you. I'm probably not best placed to answer this.
Yeah.
But I know other people that are. But I think it is. I would like to know more from them. I think because I think again there is the element of overthinking.
Yeah.
That is very prevalent in people my age. So I'm thinking worst case scenario. Yeah. That's just me. But I feel like maybe they're just chill. Maybe they are riding the wave, and that's, no worries. I don't know. I'd like to know more, though, for sure, about the care home.
Okay.
I haven't had as much as I'd like.
We've got the care home right there.
We can ask them.
We can pass this radio mic.
Maybe.
We've got this extra mic. just bang on the window. Because
stones.
I sort of feel like we're talking about. I mean, we're talking about this stuff. None of us have. Is there anyone here that's got kids? Because a lot of people around the table have said, "I'm not having kids."
I'm going to give that back.
No, can I give my seat to someone else?
Yeah.
No, can I give my seat to someone else?
Well, I mean, it's up to. Don't feel like you've got to stay there, but I think you've asked some pretty big questions that didn't get answered. If you are going to leave, give us a final thought. I mean, I thought your point about what should we ask for, what do we actually demand in terms of, or do we even need a change to our society? Let me get Philippa's final thought, and then.
A final thought. This is just the beginning. This is like opening it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's hearing from those all along the way, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know, it needs to be intentional, but it needs to be present and relevant. So I guess it's just, I don't know, as is every issue at the moment, hearing from different people to who has led things previously.
Yeah. So in a way, it's about really just getting all the different perspectives out there, and somehow putting this together.
Yeah. I don't know. Like maybe, how do we not force but push a little more to hear voices?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, how do we hear voices? I think that's a really good one. So let me also. I'm going light on the sound effects tonight because I sort of feel I'm not feeling like a lot of them are that relevant. Thank you, Philippa. We've got a spare seat so people come forward. There's so many questions here out there. Oh, you've got a new face. Tell us your name.
Hi, Odile.
What was it?
Odile.
Adil.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to say something straight off?
I only joined temporarily
Okay.
to nip back to my naughty seat because I feel much better and more comfortable there. But Holly kind of alluded to me just earlier because I work at Spring Grove.
Okay.
So I work there as an art therapist, do activities with it. But life carries on, so there's not much difference between life here and life there.
Yeah.
So the residents are quite discontent or contented, depending on the day and how they're feeling.
Yeah.
So it's not like I think they know that it's their last bus stop, but there's. I don't know if I'm answering any questions, but
No,
you know,
I mean, I
it's
think
just
you're
like,
giving. I think we do need this perspective because, in a way, we're talking about the people that are being cared for, older people, but we're not actually hearing from them. So, in a way, this is the kind of closest we're going to get.
Well, yeah. So their life is as it is. They're at the moment cooped up like chickens, not able to go out like we are as much. So that's very tough for them. But I just wanted to stress the fact that once you are in a care home, it's not all roses, and it's not all everything is going to be okay, because there's a lot of people there who don't want to be there, even though there's a lot of money invested in them. Being there, they know. Some of them know that they're imprisoned, or they feel that they are imprisoned. So that is quite a larny place to stay. It's not the best, of course, but it is a pretty good home. But they're, it doesn't really.
Well, thank you, Adil, for coming and giving us that insight as a question.
I've got a question because you mentioned, this is very interesting what you're saying, but you said you're an art therapist. I mean, does art in your experience, does it kind of help making people feel less like they're in prison, or they just feel like they're in prison, some of them, and that's it? It doesn't matter what they do, no matter what kind of pottery class or whatever it is, they're just checked out.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
It's a very good question, and of course it depends on the person you're dealing with. Many of them are perseverating and have degrees of dementia, disease. So yes, I think there is a therapeutic quality to the art therapy. And you can only go as far as you can go with whoever you're working with. And some people can go really far and find greater therapy or therapeutic value in what you're doing. But I don't think you should minimize any kind of creativity in any way, shape or form, because that taps into part of the brain that is the least affected by Alzheimer's. So that's really, really vitally important.
So creativity is super important. We've got a point over here, and tell us your name as well.
So, hi, I'm Joe. You don't mind me asking you another question? So I gather you work with elderly people in care homes. Is there what are sort of generational attitudes to the idea of therapy? How do you phrase what you do, or do you phrase it in a different way? I'm just imagining my grandparents. I don't think if they knew they were doing anything therapeutic or mentally therapeutic, I think they would probably object morally.
Yeah.
Also, a very good question. As an artist, I just introduced myself as an artist. And would you like to do some painting today, or how do you feel? What inspires you? Would you like to look at a book on my name? That kind of thing. So it's very, very open, and I'm just a facilitator. So I'm not doing anything more. I'm not on my high horse saying, oh, because I'm not an art therapist as such. I haven't studied that. I'm literally just an artist, an artist producing work and doing work in a care home.
Does working in the care home actually, does it change the nature of your work in the studio?
No, that keeps the wolf away from the doors.
Yeah.
So my work is very, I guess, it's very set in the work that I do. So, but I think it's fair to say working in a care environment, it's incredibly fulfilling and although very, very draining.
Yeah.
Because there's the feel-good factor to that, or the fact that using love and all your efforts and all to entice any kind of creativity out of them.
Yeah.
That feel-good factor helps me have more objectivity with my work when I go back to my work. Otherwise, I'd just be like a hamster doing my drawings or whatever, not feeling that I've got space to see it anew.
Wow. Okay. So, where do we want to go with this conversation? There's so many elements that you've given to us, Adil. You've got a point, Tilly?
Yeah, I was just wondering that if you've got the top generation, like the residents, if you like, and then where do the other generations come in and participate in that art, or is there a place? There's a place for that. If I was to spend time with my grandmother, then I would practice gardening or something, and she could just watch. Like, she can't partake, but there is just that presence of being there, which seems very, very like there's a way of caring, of just being very present, which I think people can be quite afraid of. I think care, sometimes people think they have to give a lot more than actually what their capacity is. Their capacity can just be simply to be sat there. My brothers would be sat there and like, I don't know what to say to her. I was like, don't say anything, just sit there and be present. And so that's I think we maybe want to think about how that care is given. Okay, so you're saying, you're getting a round of applause. I've been very slack on the sound effects here. So a round of applause there. So that question of presence, of just being there. I mean, there's a lot of chat about kind of is this intergenerational thing actually happening at all? No, says Kelly.
I don't think it is at the moment, because we hide elders, certainly in the UK. I think if we were having this conversation in a different country, that might not be the case. But I think in the UK or in Europe, we hide our elders away. And I think that idea of being present is that's what's required. And actually that becomes a lot harder if what you're having to do is enter an institution in order, for me to go and enter an institution and just hang out with a group of people who are of a different age to me. There's a barrier there already.
There's not really a vehicle to be able to do it. Well, maybe that is a call out as well. So if anyone is not from the UK and there's something we can learn from your culture, I'd like to know.
Hi, I'm from the Netherlands.
Okay.
The interesting thing is my dad doesn't mind to go to a care home. My mom is like, hell no, and ties in a little bit like what type of care you get. She's like, I'm not a child. I don't need to be cared for it in a sense, but also I don't like to all of a sudden have to be with a bunch of people that I don't know, that aren't my friends, and now I have to do things together and in a certain time rhythm that is set within the home. Whereas my dad couldn't care less. He's like, oh, I'll just muse along. So I think the care system might be slightly different because it is a government kind of finance thing. The taxes go to it, so I guess in a way you are, even if you don't have that house to have as your sort of like backdrop, as in when you sell it, you have the amount of money to stretch you as long, which I heard, I'm not sure if this is completely true, but kind of like if you sell your house, that amount of money will give you the amount of years to actually get care here. That's not a thing in the Netherlands, thank God. But then if you don't have a house or own anything and you go into the care system, you don't have necessarily a choice of what care you're getting. It's the fact that you're getting it.
So it's a kind of one-size-fits-all
Yes
approach.
and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. An intergenerational one. I talk a lot with my parents. I did a project with them about death, just something light. The interesting thing was we mainly talked about life rather than death. And one of the things to see them as a person rather than seeing them as mom and dad, or for me like the kid, that was a very interesting way in. And I have, after that project, started to talk with my friends, which was very scary, but say to my two best friends, say like, hey, you know, this whole thing of not having kids or not knowing if you want to, and not automatically wanting to place the burden on them, it's kind of like, how would you feel if I get sick, that we come to some sort of understanding of, and they were like straight away, oh, we'll take care of you. I was like, yes, but financially, because you guys do have a family, that comes first. So how would that look? Can we start that conversation? We had no idea what the hell to talk about in that sense, but we started the conversation. So it's also about, I think, braving it and just daring to try.
What I mean, why is that such a scary conversation? It is a scary, but it shouldn't be a scary conversation to have. It shouldn't be a conversation that you have to apologise for. We are all going to get to the point where we're being people are cared for at different points in their life anyway. It's not just when you become elderly. So it's we should be having these conversations. I don't understand why I do understand there's a pressure from society not to have these conversations in a way. What
is that pressure? Because it's very hard to put your finger on it, isn't it? I mean, what is the pressure to? We can have that conversation right now.
There's someone.
We can. The whole point of Talkaoke is up to you to decide what you want to talk about, not me. Yeah. So we could have that conversation right now. Is there a pressure? Is anyone saying no? We can't do it. There was a point here, Tim.
Yeah, I wanted to mention what you just said, Kelly, about that we put elderly people out of our kind of side of our society, and I think it's the same with death. Can I just take the mic, because if not, I'm gonna look like the hunchback.
Gives me a rest. Well, grab the mic. I should have said that as well. Grab the mic, because I don't actually want to. Oh, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So I would say that we just kind of get used to these kind of conversations. So big round of applause from my side that you were that brave and took the courage to do so. So
what is stopping us from having the conversation? Is it? I mean, you say courage. Why do we need courage to have this conversation?
I think because we are not used to it. It's because nobody did it before. It's like to give you another example. Let's speak about feminism. I needed someone to show me how women can have a career, just to have a role model. And then I think, sorry, I forgot your name, Anne, actually is a good role model to say, let's speak about death and our friends who could life and death with our friends, and if they could take care of us or not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an open question.
There was a point. Sorry, I forgot your question.
Did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, just quickly, the one thing which I encountered over and over and over and over when talking to my parents about death was, if I say my parents' name in the same sentence as the word death, surely they will drop within a few seconds or tomorrow, but then I have called it upon myself. So there's this weird superstition. Yeah. Exactly like that.
Okay, so we don't want to say our parents' name and death, or probably our friend's name and death. It sounds, yeah.
One thing to add though, with the project that I did, was an art project with my parents about it. Everybody, after they came out of the installation, wanted to talk so badly about people that they knew, or people that are still living but in a tough situation. There's such a need to actually talk about it, just not directly with the people that are involved, which was interesting because that came too close.
Okay, so
I guess.
maybe it's a bit too emotionally hard to talk directly, but maybe with friends.
Yeah, sorry, this might not be very lucid, but so I've got your name. Timna. Yeah, I guess from maybe a different lens, but yeah, I think there's a lot of pressures of traditional white British heterosexual society to not talk about things. And I feel very privileged actually to be part of a queer community where a lot of those rules are being rewritten, and a big part of that is communication. I think I'm probably in a much more privileged position to have that conversation, for example, with my friends, because this is a cliche at this point, but you know, I've in a way have a chosen family as well as my biological family.
Heterosexuals can't talk about these things. Is it just?
I mean, it's centuries of reinforced norms, presumably.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, I don't know, trauma of world wars and you know, various things like that. I could go on.
Okay, so it's history. It's the weight of history in a way, and norms. You said. Yeah. Go on.
I also think it's because we're lazy because the systems are set up for us.
Right. Okay. So
you know,
it's
so
about
I think if you're if you're from a queer culture, or you realise those systems are not set up for you, therefore you have to create your own support systems.
So you've got that insight that you know maybe this isn't working. So
yeah, because those systems are hostile to certain communities, and therefore those communities have to create their own support systems. Whereas when the support systems are made, you know, made by white, cis, heterosexual, whatever, then we get very, very lazy because we know those systems are there and they're going to care for us, even if they're not going to do it in a very good, you know, a very loving way. Those systems are in our image, in a sense.
It's going to work for us. When I'm saying that as a white heterosexual cis male. There are some seats here. We want to hear as well from the people at the back. This is a participatory, and it gives the deal a chance to escape. Give us a final thought before you go. But we've got some new people coming in. Yes. Tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Zoe.
Zoe?
I'm Holly's friend. Just to let you all know.
There's a point over here from Margot. I mean, Is it down to the norms that I guess the heterosexual white male world has created?
I just wanted to, I wasn't going to answer that, but I was just thinking about your earlier question, which was about, is it different in different cultures? And it's interesting because I think doing, you know, having a conversation with your family members about dying, or like an art project with them about dying is cool. But when I was in a situation where my dad needed to be cared for, my mum wasn't interested in this shit. Like, I mean, like, you know, she was just, that was in Poland. She wasn't interested in having like a nice conversation about my dad's terminal illness. What she was really interested in is like, can I lift him up? Can I, you know, pick up the medication? Can I do this? Can I actually quit my life in the UK, go back to Poland for a period of time? Until I don't know when, and just like put my life on hold and really care and support her. And I realized that you know, caring, it's not just some kind of hypothetical quaint idea. It's, you know, it's not some kind of nice idea that we can, you know, we can all probably just sign, you know, on the dotted line and say like, oh yeah, we like that idea of caring for people, but do we have what it takes to actually do it? So that's my question. Do we think?
Effort point as well. I mean, where do we want to go with this? Do we want to talk about the talking or the work, or maybe they're both connected?
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, so this year I started to do this practice with my parents. I already break it down very clear with them that I'm not gonna have children, and I start to make it that even clearer this year. And then they seem to be very disappointed. But this year we're having more conversation around. So let's just make it very financially and responsibility-wise clear. How much money do you guys for now in the bank for retirement? And then let's say emergency happened, who is going to be immediately be contacted? Let's just break it down on a sheet of paper. Let's write it down. And then when that conversation starts from a very uncomfortable place, actually that's where truth is birthing out. You know, you give birth to truth from those uncomfortable conversations. So I find that really helpful, even though I think there's there's a definitely a.
How was it to start the uncomfortable? Did you sort of feel like I'm going down this road? Once again, it's this. Oh no, actually that's the wrong one. It is.
For me, it was two things. I recover from cervical cancer, so that was a really good opportunity for me to even bring up that conversation at all.
Right.
And then COVID happened. Everyone started to think about, if I just die today, who am I gonna contact? And then just list a list of people. These are gonna be the people who you fully, wholeheartedly trust, and then think about how to have that conversation with them first.
In a way, that kind of spectre of COVID actually helped sort of knocked us out of the norm that you were talking about. But yeah, I mean, when you're looking, you're looking at death, then I guess it's a starter for a conversation.
I just want to go back to co-living and how we spoke about that, because I think more investment into intergenerational co-living could not only make us more used to living with each other, but also kind of make it easier to have these kind of conversations. Yeah. So, for example, like Anne suggested, her mum didn't want to live with people because she wasn't never used to that. But what if we get to a certain age and we're more used to living with people of different generations? And then obviously when it gets to a point where we do have to be taken care of professionally, and we are in a care home, that transition isn't as jarring as it would be from going from your home. Yeah.
So maybe that intergenerational living would help us with awkward conversations potentially. Where do we want to go with this? Do we want to talk about awkward, difficult conversations? Do we want to have an awkward, difficult conversation now? I'm quite in favour of it myself. But do we want to talk about life? Do we want to talk about death? Do we want to talk about the work, as you were saying, Margot, the work involved in caring? It's not just a conversation, it's actually hard work. And I think Odile, that works in the care home, will testify to that. So where do you want this forum is for you, so take it wherever you want to go. Teddy?
I kind of just wanted to come back to a very early point about the extended family, and that actually to care for someone, for an elder, is almost like dutiful, like there is a burden, right? And also that burden will have a financial implication. So I'm questioning how you extend that family, how you extend that care. So if I'm going to rely on my friends, I know my brother's always going to be there, but I don't know if the friend is always going to be there. I mean, are they going to be there? And then at which point are they going to continue to offer that care? I don't think we are at that point at which, we might co-live with someone else, and that's all really great, but when the shit hits the fan, are they...
I think that's a really important point. It's like we've got to practice it. I think going back to that, the person who was there a while ago who sort of said, so what do we ask for? I think it's not necessary. I think we do have to ask for things, but I think sometimes we just have to do it. And I think it comes from learning how to live our lives beyond the family unit. Yeah. I'd also say that there are lots of families, like, biological families, where one can't assume that a brother is going to look after I think that's one version of a family. I think there are other families where that is, you can't assume that just because you have blood relation, you have the same blood, that person is going to look after you, is more likely to look after you than. But I think it is to do with. I think it's absolutely to do with conversations and having those now and practicing that now. For example, also, sorry, I'm now skewing it off somewhere else, but our whole conversation has been about caring for the elderly, and actually we have care at all points in our lives. I know that I am being cared for now by many friends and in lots of different ways, and I'm sure there's it's care happens at every point in our lives, and it's interesting that
there was a mention of COVID, and obviously COVID, we're out of hopefully on the way out of the other side of COVID. Has that changed the perspective? Has that made us think more about care?
That wasn't the point, but I've got to make one. So I'm a nurse, so I've looked after a lot of patients who got quite sick. and to the point where like they've sort of thrown everything at them. They're quite old, but they've never had that conversation of, if I was to get this sick, do I want X, Y, and Z? And I feel like everybody should have that conversation, whether you're like 20, 30.
And what is the conversation? What do you want to ask?
Like, say, like, I don't know, if I had a big car crash and I can't move, don't give me all the treatment, give me, you know, this is my limit. And I think what happens then is the emotion takes over the family. They're like, throw everything at them, keep them going, and it's like, is that really what they want? You know what I mean?
So we should be talking about this all the time.
Yeah.
Why do you think we don't talk about it all the time?
Because we don't like talking about death, I think. Yeah. Okay. And I think that's what I've got to say on that.
I just wanted to say, I think death is not really sexy for a lot of people. Like, like putting them away. But it's the same with getting older. So like, youth is, I think, what society expects us, where we should look through, but we will not get younger, we will get older, and this is a fact which we can't change.
Why are we so kind of anti getting older? Surely it's a good alternative.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Good question.
Okay, I want to put that out there. No, you've got a point, but I want to just say to people, come and sit down. This is not a spectator sport. This is, we want you to. I'm sure you're thinking something, so do come and sit down and say something. Yes, we've got a new face. Thank you. Give us a final thought before you go.
I've got a long. I'll stay then.
All right, stay then. I'll come.
Yeah, just commenting on that. I think that we have to shift a perspective in terms of looking at aging. How about we looking at aging as a wisdom progression process, so we can see old people as a resource and like a vault of wisdom in it. So the more that we interact, actually young people can benefit from it instead of constantly going for social and technological acceleration. That's a new way to think about it.
Is social and technological acceleration kind of work rather than getting married?
I think that's already in motion. I think the polyamory is already in motion. That conversation is a lot more widespread than it was. I don't think there are examples or there's elders to maybe look upon. So we're still treading virgin sands in that respect and trying to work out what that looks like and what the examples are.
Older people haven't done polyamory.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that conversation is a little bit more open than it has been, and I welcome that.
Okay. So we're going down
I guess a challenge that would come from focusing on a more diverse system of care, or like expanded relationships that you keep strong, is I suppose when you're talking about marriage or like lifelong partnership, it's written, it's like predetermined that if one of you, if shit hits the fan for one of you, then the other one is there. When there's like a group of 10, it's like, okay, so somebody's just had a disease, like has been diagnosed with a terminal illness, or and someone else has just lost a child, and like, so there's a lot, there could be among more people lots of care going on. So then I guess you could say that the intensity or the quality or the focus or the guarantee of the care being is like less. It's like more dependent on a few different things.
Okay, so I guess it's kind of mathematical point, really, isn't it? You know, more nodes could mean more support, it could mean less intensity of support.
But you know, I really disagree. I think actually I'm not defending the institution of marriage, but what I am defending is it just makes things easier in my view, because if you've got so many people, like a person who was sitting here, but they've gone now, you know, they were talking about, okay, when the friend had an accident, they were all trying to kind of ring up the family or whatever. I think the more people involved in somebody else's life, the more hierarchy is being kind of imposed into who's closer to the person, who is the chosen friend. Whereas if you've got if you've got a wife or a husband or whatever, partner, then it's clear, well, that's the person. Whether that's true, we don't know, because there may be like a double bluff, but at least it's simple. Like, I just cannot imagine, like, who would I ring, you know? But I do think, talking about death, and let's break it down. Like, what about this kind of hierarchy? Who's the closest to the suffering? Oh no, I really feel it because I'm really connected to you, and you know, is it caring for people a selfish act?
Does it have to be a hierarchy? You want to say something?
Well, just to echo what you were just saying, maybe the hierarchy is the problem, whichever system you end up ascribing to.
Okay. I mean, we could go down to that question about hierarchy and care. Can it help in a certain way? Does it hinder that care when you've got a network of people caring? Timna, say the thing you're going to say, even though it's not.
I just wanted to say I like the idea of having a hierarchy of BFFs, like BFF 1, 2, and so on.
BFF. Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm back. I just wanted to respond to that. I think I caught what you said. Just talking about from my own experience, there was a lot of awkward thoughts and feelings about should I be arranging this, you know, like how close really were we, and you know, like stupid stuff like at the vigil, like where do you sit, you know, stuff like that. But what I would say is like that's kind of arbitrarily imposed as well, and like.
I mean, is it really a hierarchy? Is it just what people are feeling?
Yeah, themselves? That's what I mean. I think. I mean, at the time we were very young as well, so I think that was a kind of like a legacy of these kind of like social weird, you know, things as well. But now that's not how I feel about it. And when we celebrate his life, it's a lot of people coming together, and some of them didn't know him because they are now the partners of his friends. But there's no sense of, no, you can't be involved because you weren't actually that good friends with him, or you can't be involved because one time he said something nasty about you. It's like that's ridiculous. I don't mean what you said, but like that thought to me would be ridiculous because we're not thinking about hierarchy. We're thinking about love and celebration.
I mean, is there any place for hierarchy in? I mean, you mentioned love. We're talking about care. Maybe we need to get the difference between those two things out on the table. But I mean, is there a place for hierarchy and all of that? Come on, we've got a new face over here, and you can pull up another chair if you want to, because there's, you know. Oh, Zoe's gone. Give us a final thought, though, Zoe, before you go. Yeah.
Final thought.
Too much. Oh, you've got. Yeah. There we go. Anyway.
I just wanted to bring two things to the table. Yeah. One was about this idea of like the marriage or various like groups of friends caring for people, and these are all really like beautiful and interesting things. But I think also that relies on individuals and an individualistic capitalist society that allows just our friends to care for us or our parents to care for us. What about asking the bigger people, what are they doing to care?
What do you mean the bigger
people? The government or institutions. Yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to bring to the table as well was about this idea of like the emotional talking versus the physical work. And I don't think that's a versus. Aren't those two things completely linked? And perhaps the fact that we're operating them as a versus is part of the problem. Yeah. The emotional labour is labour.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that was my fault, really, for just trying to stir something up there. But it's, you know, maybe it is all the same thing. So, you know, but what's your name?
Alice.
Alice mentioned the government, the big people. Do we want to bring these people in? Can they be involved in the question of care? What do people think? Come and join in if you want to. And you can bring your beer to the table as well, because this table is beer proof. So maybe some of you've not said anything yet, so go on.
So because like the last one just mentioned about the big people like the government, so I just want to share a little bit the experience like about like caring old people in China, because like several decades ago, government want to support about the one-child policy. So they said like, oh, government gonna help you to take care of the old people after they getting old. But actually, things getting changed after we grow up. They just change their advertisement right now, saying like, oh, every family should take their own responsibility to help to like take care of your like elder people. Like government is not God; they can't take care of anything. So I just
What do you think about, have they got any possibility to care, the government, not just the Chinese government, but any government around the world? Can governments care in that same way that families and friends can care?
Obviously they can't, but I think like they need to try their best to do that. Like, but I think the situation might be a little bit different between like Western culture and East, because like we have a kind of culture called like xiao, which means all of the younger people have to like have it's a really big like heavy bag carried on every young people, like so maybe like we're gonna feel guilty if we put all of our elder people to the government. It's just like we need to have those kind of responsibility to be a part of taking care of them.
When you say it was a heavy burden.
Burden, yes.
Yeah. Can you describe what that feels like? What that's about?
You should be shame for you if you didn't carry your parents very well.
So it's a
like,
feeling of shame.
Yes, you're not a good person. It's a kind of a standard for judging you if you are like a good people in the society or not. It's like a part of the system's judgment like standard.
Okay, there's a point over here, but I wanted to bring you in as well on this one. Yeah.
I was just going to say, is that a good example of where the government sets the tone in terms of, so in a society where the government is able to create social guilt and create emotional triggers for people that like precipitate certain responses, isn't that an example of like governmental soft power? It's not just infrastructure lacking or existing, it's actual moral imperatives imposed on people through, I don't know what method it is, probably mass media.
Okay, is it a form of soft power from the government?
But is it?
Yeah, interesting, yeah.
I also think the burden can be flipped around as well. I think parents as well, because they know the burden that the children hold. You also find in many cultures, a lot of parents actually hide the burden, try to hide their illnesses or try to hide their situation away from their kids because they want the kids to progress. So I think you find in different countries that there's a large portion of elderly who are homeless and their kids don't even know about it. So I think that's burden kind of the other way around as well.
So in a way they actually, the older people are aware of this sense of burden, but they don't want to pass it on. They don't want to take advantage of it. They want to do the opposite. There's a point here.
I just wonder because, like, even the people, the system, shall we say, is made up of real people, right? Well, you hope that they're not AIs. Yeah. And so I'm just thinking maybe they just need some kind of shock therapy. Maybe they just need to understand that whatever decision they make, it sounds so trivial, but
shock therapy.
They need to understand and feel for themselves. They need to be guilt-tripped to hell and back for making decisions that they make. So I'll just give you an example. For instance, the war in Ukraine has been going on for a long time now, probably more than anyone would have wanted. But I feel like that kind of dropped down the agenda. That's not really that important. Until my friend recently went to Berlin, and he sent me pictures of posters which are kind of plastered out around, Kreuzberg, the Hackney Wick of whatever, Berlin. And they are really shocking. They're like really shocking, and they really make you stop and think. And they're referring specifically, anyway, maybe I should say. Anyway, it's just it's talking about rape of children, but it's just like it's so stark, it's so in your face, and you're thinking, I'm in fucking like Hackney Wick. Of course I'm on this side, but like you forget anyway. So that's what I mean about shock therapy. There are things that we know, the things that we understand, but maybe they need to be like really, taken home, and people need to be guilt tripped. That's
therapy,
it. Yeah, shock therapy.
Being shocked with the truth. You're saying, do we need to be shocked with the truth? Malik?
I mean, I think the government just needs to be made up of more varied people. That aren't just all rich old white guys, and then maybe they wouldn't need to be shocked because they'd actually have different experiences.
So a more diverse government would sort the problem out?
I think so.
It's more immediate. We can immediately shock them before we can actually replace them. That's a longer process.
Do we need shock therapy, and what would that shock therapy look like? There's a point over here.
Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe sometimes guilty energy is not a good energy to rely on for change, because it sort of burns bright and quick, like it burns out quickly, which is what you're describing.
Yeah.
It's like an adrenal gland that empties very quickly. I feel like
you wouldn't want to use guilt. What sort of
motivation?
Tactics?
Well, the most underrepresented motivation in society is imagination. There isn't enough imagination. We're always juxtaposing our new ideas against what's gone before. We're always orientating ourselves by the structures of before, even when we talk about marriage, abolishing marriage, or whatever inherited structure we've arrived at. Just by paying reference to it, we orientate our new future by the old. And I feel like the thing that's always lacking in these discussions is imaginative capacity, because it's the least exercised bit of our brain, and it's the one that's most likely to give us the seductive solutions and ones that we can actually have the energy to engage with.
Okay, so a more kind of fun motivation, more managed. I think that's I'm gonna definitely reward that point.
Yeah, just gonna throw a questioning. Yeah. So just thinking if so you say you are the head of the government and you're standing like right on top of everyone, sort of. You know, you have power, you have like everything, and then and when you look down to like people, are you actually looking at like just crowd of like people, like a bit like a massive cloud or something, or you are looking at one looking at individuals? So it's like.
I don't know. Have got any government leaders here? I mean, there's a point though. Does everyone look like ants? You know, is it like an ant farm when you're, say, Boris Johnson, looking at the millions of people that live in the UK or any country? Can you actually identify the individuals and the feelings? I think is the point here. Did you want to say something? Are you just gonna? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think care, and whether it's government or institutional, whatever, takes a level of personal responsibility, and there's an exchange of values and seeing each other as fully realized, actualized people, and if there's a disparity in terms of politics of different classes or different social groups, then I think it's very difficult to have a real exchange of personal responsibility or exist.
So, I mean, does that mean, going back to, what's your name? Well, Julian's point about does that mean those people need a bit more imagination to actually imagine what it's like to be in a different class or a different social situation?
Well, I think it means that we should offer something of ourselves and be vulnerable. Okay. And I think we live in it's very difficult to be vulnerable in the modern world.
Okay, so that's a really good point. I'm going to hold that point. I think that's a really good point. I'm going to give that a round of applause as well. But I'm actually talking about a round of applause. I'm going to jump out of the table, mostly because I want to say stuff. And in the middle, you can't give your opinion. Well, you can, but it just makes it all go wrong. So we've got Timna is going to jump in and just host the last bit of this. So keep it warm. Don't go anywhere, Alice. Or if you do, give us a final thought. Help out Timna. But we're going to hold that point, the vulnerability. I think it's a really good moment to carry things on. I'm going to give you. Okay. Go, give us a final thought. Yeah, go on.
Final thought. I guess my final thought is just back to that thing about physical labour and emotional labour being completely linked, and they shouldn't be separate. And I think that's a huge issue in care, and why care has been sort of put down over many years. It's like that. Is that it often is thought of as an emotional thing, which I would say is generally aligned with being a feminine thing.
It's almost devalues it to be emotional, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, well that's a good point to hold it in. Are you ready to come in, Timna? Nearly. Okay, we're going to keep this conversation going. I think we've got another half an hour, am I right about that? Yes? So I'm going to get a chance to say stuff. Don't give the mic to me too much, though, because you know what I'm like. And let's welcome Timna. Timna's going to have a go in the middle. Let's have some plaudits for her. And you're there, so you're actually next to the sound effects that you can actually press them if you want to. So let's welcome Timna. I'm going to leave that to you, and I'm going to jump out.
Does that work? No.
I'll turn you up. Let me turn you up.
Okay. Turn me on.
There we go.
So, hello. Nice to see that many faces. So, and I'm going to start because I think I don't know your name. What's your name?
My name is Ha. Yeah.
Ha.
Ha.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
nice
my
to
name.
meet you. So we have Ha. Can you tell me your name again?
Joey.
Joey. Ha. Joey.
Dan.
Dan.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw.
Yeah.
So we have
Mikey.
Mikey.
Julian.
Teddy.
And
Swiss.
Okay, great to see you. So, sorry, I'm so sorry.
Maddie.
And Mally, hey, great to see you. So, we just had 1 point from Dan about vulnerability, and Alice just left us with her final thought about emotional and labor and care. So, where do you want to go? I think there was a point about vulnerability from Mikey or Julian.
I wanted to respond to Dan. Just to respond to Dan's point about, it was Dan, right? About personal responsibility, which is often, I feel like, overestimated as a response, because to me it's part of the cult of individualism that we're kind of living in for the last 50 or 60 years, where the individual is expected to be the basis of the response, the political response. But that's actually like a market, that's a creation of markets. That's why, like, climate change, for instance, is the way it's spun by mega corporations, is that we all need to do our bit. You hear that a lot. We all need to take personal responsibility. But this is just a way of abnegating responsibility for those that are really responsible for, like, horrendous predicaments that we're in. And they've sold us this kind of self-help lie about personal responsibility, that we're responsible for our own condition, we're responsible for others' condition, when in fact we have basically no choice about the world we're born into, the systems that are in place, so basically anything. We have a simulacra of free will, but actually it's a modicum, it's a tiny element of reality.
Responsibility of individuals. So asking you a question back, so what would you like to have from let's say government, because you were speaking about responsibility, about the individual?
I would like there to be a better appreciation of scale, which we don't really have an instinctively enlightened approach to. We tend to think of massive macro issues in the same breath as, like, micro local issues, and it's very hard because of our, like, simian minds to sort of, like, link the two and realize that they're of orders of magnitude of different importance. And if we had a society where the macro issues were more successfully taken care of by the macro entities like governments and corporations, wealthy people, all the rest of it, then I would be fine with personal responsibility. But yeah, it seems it's like a kind of, it's a way of deflecting responsibility from those who actually have the power to do something about it.
Yeah, and would you have an example, a concrete example related to caring?
I mean, my mind exploded as you were talking, because precisely for the reason that you were talking about massive things which are complicated, complex, and it's quite hard to kind of deal with them. Like, you know, you can try, but it's almost like a losing battle, because these things are really interlinked and very complex. But I'm just thinking, okay, a lot of people said tonight, like, I'm not going to have children. So maybe, like, the most kind of countercultural thing that we can do now is to have children. And the reason why I say that is because maybe when it gets too complicated, we just need to revert back to, I'm going to say, okay, tradition, but maybe that's too loaded, but just like our instincts. Okay, so we just like animals. We can just like, if we don't get too bogged down with like the stuff that you just said, maybe you just need to reproduce and hope for the best and just like try to get some food and just like get on with it. Because the minute you start going massive, it's just too much. Like, who's got capacity for it? So yeah, reproduce, hunt, get food, get married, and that's it. Sorted.
So we have a point from Ben. Joe, sorry. Joe.
Yeah, I've got to say, I mean,
I think it's me.
Sorry. On that, I keep coming back to you, but yeah, I love being a queer person. I'm very proud to be a queer person, but I've got to say there is a lot of appeal of a lot of traditional conservative values. They seem to set people up in pretty good stead, and from what I can tell from history, it seems to have worked up until now, and this is actually the crisis point. So yeah, that's a contradiction. And on what you said, yeah, I think the decline of governmental responsibility, yeah, I think we should have a little think about why that's happened. And in this country, as well as others, I think we've got to look at the way healthy debate hasn't existed for my lifetime, as far as I know. So this is great, thank you. But
it's Talkaoke.
This is a side note, but I went to view Question Time in Hackney yesterday, and they choose a panel that are going to fight. You have a party political Labour candidate, you have a party political Conservative line. None of them say anything interesting on you, and it doesn't affect what the government's going to do the next day, because they know that they're untouchable.
Okay, and what would you suggest? What would be your answer or solution maybe to this?
I mean, this is very, very broad, but we have to think really, really, really hard about preventing issues becoming culture wars, because that's the way we're headed. And if that happens to climate or Ukraine, I mean, I can think of lots of other things. I mean, queer rights. If that happens, we're really truly screwed. Like, that wasn't an answer, but that's where we are.
No. So Joe, the point at which you're making, you would like also to have more, let's say, prosperous discussions. Yeah. Mike, you have a point.
Well, I totally relate to everything you're saying about the way that mainstream media works, but I think when it comes to the point of individuality, I feel like we are becoming more individualist as a society. I think we just need to go with it, regardless, and be aware of the limitations, but also of the possibilities of the individual. You know, the individuals created Extinction Rebellion. Individuals campaign for stuff, they do stuff, and I think it's about those individuals feeling like they've got the power to do things as well. And I think, the whole of our world, and it goes back to this Question Time, the power relationship is so much with the institution that you feel so small and pointless. I'm sure that's a feeling you get from being at Question Time. Yeah, but I think we need to give power to individuals and let them run with it and let them actually coalesce and do stuff together.
Okay, you get something from me. I have no idea. The pig is great. So thanks for that. So I'll come to you in a second. Would you like to give us your final thought? Yeah, please. So your final thought.
Final thought. I'll be so intrigued to see how kind of our progressive value come back a little bit to the traditional one. So people getting married, getting back to traditional values, and then reproduce, like you said. I'll be so curious to see that coming. And second of all will be, speaking of the hit in the face, the shock therapy, I was thinking about embodied experience will be something similar to that. If some people will have that embodied experience of going through the trauma, and that person can actually be in a political position, making that decision, then that might generate more change.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that great final thought, and thank you for your contributions. Yeah. So, by the way, this is Talkaoke, a pop-up talk show, and you're more than welcome just to sit down. You can just contribute. Great. A round of applause, and I have no idea what this is. Yeah. Great. So we have two new faces. What's your name? Hello.
Hi. Oh wait, should I take the microphone?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Kira. I just wanted to come on to what Joe, who I know, and what you were saying about this like idea that like society is becoming more individualized, and people like we're talking about the idea of Question Time and Extinction Rebellion, like people acting for themselves. But what I wonder is how many people are we really gaining through that? I work in a school, and I know that a lot of the people that I work with in that school, they don't have a voice. Things like media literacy aren't taught anymore. Things like, you know, people understanding the world in which they work in doesn't happen anymore because the focus is on other things in the curriculum, which is, you know, arguably fair enough. But I think the thing is for us is if you're working in an area with certain children, it's like, how are we building them to kind of become the next generation, the ones that are confident in order to be like, this is my voice, this is what I have to say. And I think that's the most important thing, because looking at the area in which I work in, I argue, how many of those are going to be the people that are on Question Time in 5 years? And I'd think probably not a lot. So how can we re-engage them in this? And again, like obviously we're in London, but I'm thinking about like the quote-unquote red wall that isn't a red wall anymore. Like, how do we engage those people back into politics which actually represents them and could arguably, build on that?
Yeah, so how could we change this generation? Yeah, let's give. Thank you, Kara, okay, you want to add something there. Your final thoughts, Swiss. Oh. Yeah, thank you. We'll come back to you. Yeah. Give us your
I feel like we're speaking about so many different topics, but I think back to like co-living, how many people would actually be willing to live with people of different generations? I don't know. I don't think because I've like never really lived with my grandparents, and not so much with my parents either. So I've only really grown up living with people of my age. So you find now, we move to certain areas because there's people who have similar interests or are the same age as us. So I think it's all great that we talk about that, but who's actually willing to live with different people?
Good question. I will just quickly ask you, so thank you for your final thought and your contributions. What's your name? Hello.
Hi, I'm Ray.
Hi, Ray. Nice to see you. And we have another new face.
Hey. It's Echo here. Sorry.
Echo?
Echo, yes.
Echo. Cool. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
And you had a thought or a point.
Yes, I also work with children, so I just wanted to jump on that and think about and through all of these conversations, I think investing in the younger generation and the way that we treat them and the way that they are introduced to society and the way that we either can shut down their imagination or we can try and burst open the gates for them to kind of explore the environment, everything. And as a dancer, I think it all comes down to being able to giving kids a platform to process information with their bodies in a physical way, with their words, with their writing, expressing all of that. I think the education system needs to be completely upheaved in order to make actual change where we connect with each other, where it's not about grades. I think grades should be trashed. I mean, this is a whole other conversation, but
you choose the topic.
Yeah, right,
so we can also speak about the education system,
so I think there's just so many systems that are ingrained in children from such an early age that by the time they graduate, they either feel so individual that they can't connect with community, or they feel so washed out by institution that they don't have an individual. They're like paddling in quicksand by the time that they reach the end of their schooling. Mm-hmm. So I think that would help.
Okay, so change of education system. So we have a lot of topics. Would you like to speak about the education system, individuality? Mikey, go for it.
Sorry, Tim, no, we do need to get final thoughts from everybody now. I'm sorry. We're running out of time, so we need to get...
Give us your final thought.
But stay for everybody else's final thoughts, because it's going to look bad if everyone just leaves, says their final thought and leaves. I don't necessarily have a final thought. I think it's been a really good discussion, and I think there's a lot of food for thought here. I do think we actually are, and I think COVID has been part of this, that we've actually become a more caring society. And we always tend to look at all the negatives, but actually we are developing, and there are so many positives in how we're actually becoming more considerate, if not literally doing the work of caring.
I think that was a great final thought from Mikey. So we had great conversations about death, about caring, about elderly people, about getting older, about emotional labor. Echo, would you like to give us your final thought?
I'm not sure if you guys have already covered like the topic of like getting old, but I think it would be like a great way for like the community, like the local community, like for elderly people who live in like the local community, to pass over some like useful experience to like younger generation, so that they can know like what's gonna happen after the parents pass like certain age or something. They will like reduce like certain amounts of anxiety for sure. That would be like a useful thing for the society to do.
Okay, you already did it. Thank you for that final thought. Thanks. Who wants to give us? Oh, you all. I will all get a final thought from you guys. Teddy.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess the final thought is that you touched earlier on about individualism and how we should carry on that trajectory. Well, let's see maybe if we continue on that trajectory where that leads us. It would be interesting when all those individuals grow up, grow old, and then they'll find out that it's very, very lonely if they haven't got a community, and it will be interesting to see which communities survive that apocalypse.
That's an interesting point. Julian.
Thank you very much for the discussion. Two thoughts. We're always the oldest we've ever been. Everyone at any given moment is the oldest they've ever been. We all live forever because the longest period that we know of is our lives. We don't know what happened before we die, we're born, or after we die. And there's no wisdom in consensus.
Thank you, Julian. Joe, give us your final thought.
Were those all your original philosophies? I don't know how I'm going to top that.
Just go for it.
All I was going to say, someone asked about, intergenerational living. I never went home during COVID. I know a lot of people did. I think I would have found it quite hard, but, it's pretty expensive living in London at the moment. Like, I don't know how long I can afford to stay here, to be honest. So, something's going to give probably at some point. It's, it's adding to the list of things. But anyway, great discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ray, give us your final thought, please.
I don't know if this is totally in any way ready to be articulated, but
it is.
I think within discussions of individualism, I don't know. I think like within the ways that people talk about us becoming a more and more individualist society, it like I like can feel undertones of like that being. I don't know if this is true, but this is just like a sense that I get sometimes that is like correlated with like queerness as well, as in like people creating, or not creating, but like expressing their like selfhood in more overt ways and like finding, I don't know, which I think is a really interesting conflation of like this individualism, a sense of individual identity with an individualist society, because I think historically so much of queerness has been rooted in community, and because it has been that has been a necessary facet of queerness, because otherwise there is no care and there is no safety. And so I am just curious about how we can construct that conflation of like individual identity versus community relationships and community care, because I think those things those things must exist together, and those things have existed together, and we should figure out how to do that better.
Woo, thank you for that final thought. I'm glad that you gave us your final thought. Your final thought. It was Dan, wasn't it? Yeah.
Ray was your name? So yeah, I'm just really inspired by what you said, Ray. I was born with a disability. I'm partially paralysed on my right arm, and I lived a lot of my early life in a kind of haze of shame and self-loathing and misspent youth and identity, and I'm always really inspired by the joy and inspiration and bravery that queer people show in living their day-to-day life in a fully actualized and joyful way. And I just, maybe my final thought is, to what extent living a joyful life can be an act of care.
Woohoo! Thank you for that final thought. I'll come to you in a second. Kara, please give us your final thought.
Hi, I wasn't here for the whole conversation, but I guess my whole thought on community is that, community is something that I think in today's society is something that mainly marginalised groups kind of hold on to and represent, but I feel like it needs to be something that encompasses the whole of society in that sense. And I think that's my whole thing. And then, we fragment ourselves, and arguably in some cases for the best and for our own protection, etc. But I do think that we need to kind of find a new way of living together, I guess is what I want to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you for that final thought. Please give us your final thought.
I kind of gave my final thought on the education system thing, but I would just say that I think everybody can benefit from reaching out and trying to connect more. I think the world will be better if everybody has a goal to connect with people more, whether it's somebody walking down the street and you think that person's outfit's really nice. Like, just tell them. I feel like we just need to drop some of the ego or the embarrassment when it comes to those things and try and connect more in our day-to-day lives, like in random ways. Yeah.
Thank you for that final thought. Great. Hi, so this is Talkaoke. This was almost, but what's your name?
I'm Yuqing. Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Would you like to give us your first and final thought, because we're about to close it down?
I just feel like that everyone needs a safe space, because I have recently been to some queer club. I just feel like maybe I quite enjoy. I'm new to London, so I'm quite enjoying the queer club. That in London there's no much hierarchy in this club, but in China there's some queer party and queer club. You need to be really fashionable to come into this club, and so I just feel like everyone needs a safe space to express themselves. Yeah.
Great. What a great first and final thought. Thank you. So this is and was Talkaoke, a format created by The People Speak by Mikey. And this year it's going to be the 25th anniversary.
That's right, yeah.
On the 10th of July. So, and they are all welcome to come. Yeah.
Thank you, Timna, for doing the last bit of that, and thanks to everyone here at Camden Arts Centre, and thanks to the CCA course at the Royal College. This is just the beginning of it's been a very stimulating conversation, and thanks, Timna, for finishing that off, and thanks to everyone that's taken part today. This is just the beginning. There's lots of stuff going on here tonight at Camden Arts, and so just enjoy the rest of the night. Thanks very much.